how to be at peace with your wife. Begin with the humorous and then come to the more serious. My dad is an attorney. This is true, not a joke. My dad is an attorney. And he practices divorce law. So literally, and in LA, it's a full-time job. So from morning till night, all he has done for the last 45 years is get people divorced. He used to do it as a litigator. He now does it as a mediator. But he has spent literally his entire career only with couples who are getting divorced. And he happens to be a very smart man. And my dad has a saying, a teaching, which I love and I share as frequently as I can. And the teaching is, you can either be right or you can be married. You can't be both. In India, where divorce is not so common or prevalent, we could amend it slightly to say you can either be right or you can be happily married. Because maybe you won't actually get a divorce, but then you just find yourself in a miserable relationship. So you can either be right or you can be happily married, but not both. Meaning, you have to decide in every situation, is it more important here to be right or is it more important to be at peace? And there's very few situations that arise in a marriage that are more important than being at peace. I mean, if your wife said, I'm gonna, take a gun and go out and kill all the neighbors, well then by all means, stop her by anything you have to do. Even if it's a fight, fight her. Stop her from killing the neighbors. But if what you're talking about is what you're gonna have for dinner, if what you're talking about is the basic day-to-day stuff of life, is any of that really more important than being at peace? Of course not. You may end up getting the dinner you wanted, but you've got indigestion because you've been fighting. You may end up winning the battle, but you sleep alone. So what have you really accomplished? And so, Pujya Swamiji, it's been actually beautiful because Pujya Swamiji, of course, gives all of the teachings from the scriptures, from the Gita, from the Vedas, from the Upanishads. My dad has never read the Gita or the Vedas or the Upanishads. He gives teachings from his life. But it's been interesting because the teachings, particularly with regard to this, overlap completely. So at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, after Bhagavan Krishna has told everything to Arjuna, at the end of it, he says to Arjuna, I've told you everything. Now you do whatever you think. Not I'm going to hold your hand to the fire, you must do what I say. But I've told you everything. Now you do whatever you think is right. What does Arjuna say? I will do whatever you say. Karishye vachanam tava. I will do whatever you say. And Pujya Swamiji always says, this is the secret to a happy marriage. Realize that ultimately the point of being married is not about getting your way in the little things. The point of being married is using that as a way to get closer to God. That's what life is for. So whether you're in the brahmacharya phase of life, whether you're in the grihasthashram phase of life, vanprasthashram, sannyasashram, whether you're in any of those ashrams, at any point of life, the ultimate goal is to progress spiritually. And so it's never about getting my way. It's never about the external things. You would never say, oh, this guy's very, very successful as a grihast just because he's got a good job and lots of kids. Success in the householder phase of life is when that family is one, where through their family relationships, the husband, the wife, the in-laws, depending on whoever is there in the extended family, they're all progressing closer and closer to their own spiritual awakening. The ultimate goal of a family life is not just that we should be able to agree on what we eat on Sunday mornings, that we should be able to agree on what TV show we watch. The ultimate goal is not even that we all should, get along and play cards together after dinner. Ultimately, the whole point of that phase is through that phase to get closer to God. It's not that we spend our lives far from our spiritual path and only when we get to that sannyas phase do we become spiritual. All 4 of the phases, all 4 of the ashrams are for spiritual opening. So the question in the grihastashram phase is, how can I use this? Okay, Cello, I'm here. I didn't choose to take sannyas in advance. I chose to go through this. How can I use this phase to get closer spiritually? And recognizing in every moment that I have the choice to choose peace. Number 1. Number 2, not only do I have the choice to choose peace, but recognizing that my emotional state is 100% up to me. Doesn't mean that my husband or wife or in-laws may not be the most annoying person on the face of the planet. I mean, somebody's has to be the most annoying person on the face of the planet. Somebody's will be the second most annoying person on the face of the planet. Somebody's will be the third most annoying person. Granted, you may absolutely have married the most annoying person on the face of the planet. It is possible. Somebody has to have married him or her. Most likely. Maybe it's you. Who knows? But even if it turns out it's you, nonetheless, your emotional state is not determined by that person. No one has the power to reach their hand into you and to take all of your neurons in your brain, to take the chemicals in your brain, to rearrange the electricity, the chemicals in the brain, to take the adrenal glands on your kidneys and squeeze them till they secrete adrenaline. It's your brain that does that. Nobody reaches in and grabs them and squeezes them until you've got adrenaline pumping through your body. We secrete adrenaline because our brain says, I'm stressed. Well, again, nobody's gone into your brain, pulled the right neurons, like our blinds in the house, open something, shut something. Nobody can do that with your neurons and get them to get stressed and upset. We do that. We are the only ones who actually have the power to impact the workings of our own brain like that. Unless you happen to be married to a, neurologist who's removed your skull and is prodding you with a metal probe. But if not, if you've still got your skull all on, you're the only one in charge. And so it's a wonderful opportunity to realize you may be the most annoying person on the planet, and I am still able to be in peace. Look at that. I'm still able to be happy in this moment, even though I'm face to face with the most annoying person on the planet. Because that power is within me. We think that people outside make us unhappy, make us stressed, make us miserable. They do not. We choose. We choose. What you did is something due to which I'm going to become upset. I have that choice, which means I also have the possibility to choose something different. And this is my favorite question in the world. Every time you find yourself getting upset, ask yourself the best question. Is there an alternative? And the reason that I love this question is it's not a criticism. It's not something that says you're a bad person. It doesn't say you're not spiritual. It doesn't say anything. It's simply an open-ended question. Is there an alternative? Do I have a choice? Might there be a different possible way of responding in this moment? And what you'll find is there's always an alternative. Even if you're married to the most annoying person on the planet, there is always an alternative. And you've got free will to choose whether to take that alternative or not. But if you don't, then you need to realize you've chosen that. And that's up to you. If there were an easy answer to the wife and mother situation, we wouldn't find an almost infinitely large pool, or ocean rather, of movies and sitcoms and books that come out of this dilemma, right? If it were a simple solution, you wouldn't have TV producers, movie producers come up with more and more and more storylines about it. That being said, when you find yourself in the middle, the first and most important piece to realize is that's not your job. Presumably, you've married an adult, right? I mean, presumably you don't have a child bride. Your wife is an adult. Your mother's an adult. That I know. If they're both adults, they should be able to have an adult relationship. If you can help, by all means help. Because of course they're both going to come to you. But if you find that you have really done everything you can to help, and nothing helps, then you need to be able to say to the two of them, and I would suggest saying it to them together, bring them together. Put an arm around each of them. Tell them both how much you love them both. Tell them how much it hurts you that they don't get along. Maybe do it on your birthday. Maybe do it on Diwali and say, for God's sakes, I know you're going to give me other presents. I don't want any other present. The only present I want, if you actually love me, is to please get along. But you have a very unique role also, which is you have insight into your wife's behavior and her way of thinking. You have insight into your mother's way of thinking and behavior. And in situations like this, there's almost never one person who's right and one person who's wrong. It's almost always the two of them push each other's buttons. And then you develop a pattern and it moves and it gets worse. If you can recognize this and you can help them each understand, you can say to yourself, Deko, you've seen 500 times that mom has a fit When the salt is kept over here and not over here, she has a fit. When you cook these two things together, ठीक है, it may be totally unreasonable, but क्या बड़ी बात है तो करो ना. I mean, really, like, who wants to live with another fit over a stupid thing that we can easily solve? And help your wife understand that she has an opportunity to choose peace. It may not make any sense why the salt has to be here and not here. It may not make any sense that these two dishes cannot go together. But these are the little compromises that we make, that we say, it's more important to me to have peace in the home than to put the salt shaker where I want it to go. I'd rather put the salt shaker where she wants it to go than have every meal end in a fight. And in the same way, help your mom. Hare Ma, come on, really? She's young. She's new. She's trying. Up to my. Right? Up to my. Really? Choti choti cheezon ke baare mein? You're going to lose yourself? Hare Ma. Up to matlab mahane. Right? You know, I mean, help your mom also understand that she's supposed to be a role model here. The role of the mother-in-law is not to engage in small nonsense things. She's now supposed to be in at least the Vanprastha ashram's phase, if not the sannyasa ashram phase. Help her understand. There was a time when you got to decide where the salt shaker went. When I was young, we got in trouble if the salt was out of place. Ab to chodo ma. Right? And you can do some of this. So I would say do as much of that as you can do without losing your mind. But also take them both and help them understand they are adults. And don't engage with each of them. So if either of them come to you complaining about the other, what you have to say is, mujhe suna nahi. They have to understand that they will not get any reward for that behavior. If I know, I'll give you an example. I love to tell stories. I'm a storyteller. Sometimes they're apocryphal stories, parables, sometimes they're true stories, sometimes they're true stories of my life, sometimes they're other people's stories. I'm also someone who, as I go through my life, things that happen, I think, oh, that's a good story. And for man hota, you want to share it with somebody. Oh, you won't believe the funny thing that happened to me today. Now, something very interesting. When I've observed extended periods of silence, if I've gone into silence for several days in a row, what I notice is my mind stops even noticing stories because I know that I won't be able to share it with someone. And it's not so important that ek hafte ke baad you're going to say, acha ek hafte pehle this little funny thing happened. People would say, really? You've spent a week in silence trying to remember this funny thing that happened last Tuesday? Or nothing else has happened in your life? It's a little thing. If you see somebody 10 minutes later, it's a story. But a week later, it's not a story. And so what I have found is, interestingly, if I know, okay, I'm in silence, though I'm not going to be telling anybody this, my mind does not even remember it. Like it flows like a river. It's like a line in the sand. But if I know, oh, this is a great story, oh, I know who's going to love hearing this story, then I remember it. And I share this with you because if either of them knows, okay, oh, I'm going to tell him this, they will hold on to it until they see you. They're going to want to remember it and tell you. But if they know, okay, he's not going to listen, they won't hold on to it because they know that there's nobody I'm going to go and tell. And make all the family members part of this. Anybody else who they tell stories to. Make sure that everybody says, ki mujhe suna nahi. No story zone. No drama zone. Put up signs in the living room, no drama zone. Like we have smoke-free zones, drug-free zones, drama-free zone. Put a sign on the dinner table, drama-free zone. Because if I know that I can't share it, I'm not going to hold on to it. Maza tabhi aata hai if I can share it with someone. There's no maza if I'm just telling myself it. So if I know I can't share it, if I know ki drama-free zone, they'll also let things go more and more.